If you're a fighter, you have one of the hardest jobs in one of the hardest sports, trying to lose fat and maximize performance at the same time. Most of the time, the general population will be dieting to achieve fat loss, and athletes are instead optimizing their diet for sports performance. Most of the time, these goals require opposite approaches. But what about combat sports, where you're often attempting to lose fat to make weight and improve sports performance at the same time? This is a challenging goal to pursue and a very fine line to walk to balance these two opposing goals. It's one of the many reasons that combat sports are so hard, but with the right plan, it can be done. You can get that right plan built for you by myself if you join my one-to-one nutrition program. Alternatively, if you'd love to hire a nutritionist but you simply can't afford it on your current budget, you can join my fighter nutrition course, which I created for the exact situation. You can read more and sign up for either of these at the link in the description box. Now that shameless plug is out of the way, I'll explain how you can pursue these two goals simultaneously as a fighter, allowing you to make weight whilst performing your best. But first, let's break down each of these goals and the criteria they require individually. Eating for fat loss. First, it requires a calorie deficit. To lose fat, you need to consume fewer calories than your body expends. This creates a calorie deficit, which forces the body to utilize stored fat for energy. This is a non-negotiable for fat loss. Onto macronutrients. When you're reducing your overall caloric intake, it's important that you consume enough protein, but carb and fat intake is much less important for fat loss than it is for performance. Higher protein intakes can help to preserve your muscle mass during fat loss, and some level of carbs and fats are necessary for both health, immunity, and also energy levels. But as long as protein is adequate to support muscle retention and satiety, then the ratio of carbs to fats that make up the rest of your calories are largely irrelevant for fat loss outside of huge extremes. Number one, calorie deficit. Number two, macronutrients. Number three is nutrient-dense foods. For fat loss, you want to focus on whole, nutrient-dense foods like vegetables, fruits, lean proteins, and whole grains. These foods provide essential vitamins and minerals whilst helping to keep calorie intake in check as they are high volume and lower calorie. This means they fill you up easier. Keeping highly processed foods to a low amount will likely support your fat loss goals. And finally, for fat loss, number four, meal timing. For fat loss, meal timing is largely irrelevant. As long as it suits your schedule and allows you to effectively manage your hunger, this could realistically be anywhere from 1 to 6 or even more meals per day if we're talking fat loss alone. Essentially, whatever number and timing of daily meals you can stick to works fine for fat loss. Now, the other side of the coin, eating for sports performance. Sports performance, you need calorie maintenance or a surplus. Athletes often need to consume more calories to fuel their training and recovery compared to individuals in the general population. You need to provide sufficient calories to support your training performance and recovery between sessions, and being in a calorie deficit, as would be required for fat loss, is not conducive to peak performance because, by definition, you are under eating versus your calorie needs. Number two, carbohydrate intake. As I mentioned before, this is largely irrelevant for fat loss, but carbohydrates are the non-negotiable king of sports performance. Carbohydrates are the primary fuel source for high intensity exercise, realistically anything above zone 2. Consuming adequate carbs before, during, and after training helps to maintain your glycogen stores and improve your performance. Number three, processed foods. Processed foods may be needed in higher quantities for sports performance. Not only things like protein shakes and bars and sports drinks, bars and gels around training, but also more processed foods may be necessary to allow you to consume a sufficient calorie intake. Just try consuming 3,000 calories of chicken salad. You're simply not going to do it. If you have high calorie needs, then consuming some processed foods as part of an overall healthy diet can actually help you, especially things like high GI carbs, like breakfast cereals right before training, would actually be a better option for sports performance versus something less processed, which may leave you too full and bloated to perform well due to high fiber and volume. Number four, hydration and electrolytes. Maintaining hydration is critical for performance, but it doesn't directly impact fat loss. I say directly because some people can mistake thirst for hunger, and this can lead to overeating. But physiologically, hydration doesn't really matter much for fat loss, whereas it is imperative for sports performance. Electrolyte balance, especially during prolonged or intense exercise, and especially in warm climates, is also important to prevent cramping and to maintain performance across the duration of your sessions. Fifth and finally, timing of nutrient intake. As I mentioned before, while nutrient timing is mostly irrelevant for fat loss, the timing of meals and snacks is crucial for your sports performance. Pre-workout nutrition provides energy for training, Intra-workout nutrition provides energy and hydration to sustain your performance for the duration of your session instead of hitting the wall partway through. And post-workout nutrition aids recovery and replenishes glycogen stores. Optimal nutrient timing and intake for sports performance and recovery involves consuming a pre-workout meal within 1 to 4 hours before training with about 20 to 40 grams of protein and 1 to 4 grams per kilogram of your body weight of carbohydrates, consuming 30 to 60 grams of carbohydrates per hour of training during your session, and a combination of protein and carbohydrates within about an hour post-training in similar quantities to your pre-training meal. Now I've broken down how we would approach each of these separate goals individually, but what about when we're trying to achieve them simultaneously, as combat sports athletes often are? I have 5 recommendations to help you maximize your sports performance whilst achieving fat loss simultaneously. Number 1 is about optimizing your macronutrient balance. Regarding protein intake, you want to ensure that you're consuming adequate protein to support your muscle repair and growth, which is essential for maintaining your performance and muscle mass during fat loss. Aim to consume 2 to 2.5 grams of protein per kilogram of your body weight per day. Next, carbohydrates. You want to prioritize your carbohydrate intake around your workouts to make sure that you're fueling your performance and replenishing your glycogen stores. You want to consume at least 3 grams per kilogram of your body weight per day of carbs, but realistically, it could be up to 5 to 7 grams per kilogram, depending on your daily training volume and your weight loss targets. And finally, fats. You do want to include healthy fats like avocados, nuts, and olive oil in moderation to support hormonal balance and overall health. A daily intake of 0.5 to 1 gram per kilogram of your body weight during fat loss phases will provide enough fat to support your overall health whilst not going overboard and taking away precious calories from carbs and protein. Next, onto timing. Pre-workout. You want to consume a meal with protein and carbs 1 to 4 hours before training. The textbook sports nutrition guidelines say to aim for 1 to 4 grams per kilogram in this time period, but realistically, most athletes won't get to the upper end of that range and still be within their calorie budget, unless you're an endurance athlete doing tons of volume and aiming for weight maintenance or weight gain. For combat athletes, 1 to 2 grams per kilogram of your body weight of carbs would be really good in the 1 to 4 hour window before training for most sessions that are somewhere between a 7 to 10 out of 10 intensity and over 90 minutes. For easier sessions, you could go a little under this to say half a gram per kilogram of your body weight, or about 30 grams, so you can save or budget your carbs to eat prior to harder workouts later in that day, for example. You want to keep fats and fiber fairly low in this pre-workout meal as they slow down your digestion and may lead to gut discomfort during your training session. Now, low doesn't necessarily mean zero, especially if you're eating 3 to 4 hours before your session as opposed to 1 to 2 hours. Just don't have something like a bacon and avocado salad like an hour before training and you'll be fine. Next, in the timer section, post-workout. Have a recovery meal or shake with protein and carbs within about an hour post-workout to promote muscle recovery and replenish your glycogen stores. This can help to maintain performance levels during fat loss phases. Aiming for a similar intake to your pre-training meal is generally a good rule of thumb. Number 3, aim for a slow rate of weight loss, about 0.5% of your body weight per week, to keep the calorie deficit small and to maximally preserve your performance whilst losing fat. Too large of a calorie deficit can impair your performance, your recovery, your muscle retention, and just have a large negative impact on your energy, mood, and well-being. I usually recommend 0.5 to 1% body weight loss per week, but even aiming for the lower end of this rather than the higher end can make a huge difference in your performance during fat loss phases. This could be a 300 to 500 calorie difference in your daily intake between aiming for 0.5% versus 1% weight loss per week. That could take you from 1,800 calories to 2,100 to 2,300 calories per day. That's a big difference. This may mean starting your diet earlier to allow for milder weekly weight loss targets. Up to now, we've covered macronutrients, nutrient timing, and rate of weight loss. There are 2 more factors. Number 4 is to stay hydrated. Proper hydration is crucial for both your performance and, unlike calorie intake, for example, is not opposing to and may even indirectly support fat loss. Aim for at least 35 milliliters per kilogram that you weigh if you want a concrete number to aim for, and consider electrolyte supplements and sports drinks during intense or prolonged training to help maintain hydration and electrolyte balance. 5th and finally, have a suitable strength and conditioning program. Make sure you're incorporating resistance training into your weekly schedule to ensure that you're building or maintaining muscle mass. This will ensure that the vast majority of your weight loss comes from fat tissue. An effective, evidence-based strength and conditioning program will improve your performance even whilst losing fat and will help you be an overall stronger, more powerful, faster, fitter, and more robust athlete. Make sure you check out strength and conditioning experts in your sport like Don Heatrick and Jeffrey Chu for combat sports. There you have it. To ensure that you're maximizing sports performance whilst achieving fat loss, make sure you're consuming adequate protein, keep fats relatively low to allow for a high carbohydrate intake, make sure your pre, intra, and post workout nutrition is dialed in, aim for a slow rate of weight loss, about 0.5% of your body weight per week, stay hydrated throughout the day, have a suitable strength and conditioning program. Before I leave you, make sure you get your free phytonutrition report at the link in the description box below. You'll answer 16 questions. I will rate and review your diet for free on 4 key metrics. If you would love to give me your money, but you just don't know how, you can join my phytonutrition course or hire me for one-to-one nutrition coaching at the links in the description box below. If you're not sure which option is best for you, or you have any other questions, then you can DM me on Instagram at JamesNicholl Nutrition, and I'll get back to you. Catch you in the next one.